People who fought their bullies back, what were the consequences? After months of heckling and general talking shit, things came to a head when I flipped him the bird. He pressed his chest on me, I shoved him back, then the teacher, who knew about the bullying, but told me to be thick-skinned because the bully was in special ed, kicked me out of the class. She accused me of being a tough guy trying to make a name for myself from the big city. I had moved to Florida from Nye. She wanted to put me in anger management and get special counseling. I cut my next class and called my dad. Unknown to me, he left work minutes after my call and confronted my teacher, provoking her to anger so she could feel what I felt those months. I haven't even been here 15 minutes and you're already flustered. Imagine what my son had to go through. She apologized to me the next day and the jackass was kept away from me the rest of the year. While not a typical bully, he was a spoiled rich kid who would mock everyone and was always better than everyone else. His dad was a lawyer, so he'll always drop a "we'll sue you if you touch me." Also, he would nacho and soda rock cars. Anyway, I broke his arm one time. I'll never forgot what the principal said to me. "He's a twerp." I would have done the same thing. But his dad's a lawyer, so just stay home tomorrow and I'll tell him you're suspended. For what it's worth, we've been moderately decent friends the 19 years since. My worst bully finally made me snap in middle school. I came up to him in the hall and smashed his head into his locker and hit him till the teacher pulled us apart. The next week he came to my house to make peace and be friends. As soon as we got out of earshot of my mom, his cronies jumped me and held me down while he put a .22 bullet in each of my feet from a critter rifle. Up until this I was a promising cross-country runner. I healed, but never got back into it. They went to juvie, and I got meaner. I didn't trust anyone else for the rest of school. Got constantly chased around school, in like 6th grade by these 3 big kids. For about 3 months they would just chase me. The few times they caught me, I would get F% k'd up. One of the 3 guys was the biggest, and was the main instigator. The one time when the other 2 were pushing me around by the stairwell, I snapped. I focused on one, and punched him till he fell to the ground. The other guy fled. During the fight I apparently kicked him in the head, so he reported me, and I got in trouble. They didn't give a shit about my story like the other times I tried reporting. Was a scrawny little kid in high school, into computers and D&D, and socially awkward, so I was prime real estate for bullying. From about 4th grade until 10th grade I was the target of it. I had 3 primary antagonists, one of whom rode the bus with me. I did my best to ignore him if I was shoved or heckled. Then one day he shoved me down, and I got back up, and he stood over me. "What are you gonna do?" I stood up, then jumped up and socked him right on the bottom of his jaw, and the sound of his teeth clacking together was perfect. He took a few steps back to regain his balance, and just stood there with a very confused look, and a bit of blood from what I assume was a cut tongue. He awkwardly turned away and said nothing. The next day his buddies stopped me in the hallway. Their primary leader shoved me against a wall and hit me with one of the hardest punches I had ever received right into the face. Bloodied and a fair bit angry, I kicked him in the nuts, kicked him in the face when he doubled over, and while he was on his back on the floor, I swung my book bag full of books as hard as I could over my head and down onto his face. He didn't move after that. His other buddy and I went into fist blows and more fist blows until we could get pulled apart. I think I socked my favorite teacher in the melee. The guy I whacked the day before was noticeably absent from the scuffle and told his buddies I'll fight if provoked now. I don't think they believed him. Well, I did. I unloaded many years of bottled up anger onto them in a moment of absolute rage. I had a concussion from being kicked in the head, 2 swollen black eyes, bloody knuckles, and various other small cuts and bruises. And so did they. I was left alone after that. I became friends with 2 of them over the next few years. Backpack receptacle and I never did. In high school I caught a lot of shit from this one guy. He was bigger than me. Not much, mind you. But in his mind he was towering over me. He would belittle me verbally, push me, knock books out of my hand, trip me on the stairs, etc. Our sophomore year I had enough. It was the first week of school and he gave me a flat tire as I was walking down the hallway, in a crowded hallway intersection full of freshly minted freshmen trying to find their new classes. I didn't have a plan. I just acted. I yelled, "Holy shit, Joe had an accident. Hey everybody, clear the way. Joe needs to get to the nurse's office. Come on everybody, this isn't a joke. This guy needs to get changed before his next class." Dude froze in stunned horror as the hallway noise stopped and people began to make an opening for him to move through. I'm guessing out of shock, he just sort of walked through the opening. No denial, no rage, just sort of stunned silence. That was enough to establish the rumor that Big Joe shit his pants. The rumor evolved over time that he wore diapers, that it was a result of a football injury, etc. No one made fun of him, mind you. It was a smallish school. Our graduating class was around 200 students. And while gay was still a regular insult, unless, of course, you actually were gay, in which case, whatever, you do you. Medical conditions were not mocked. But occasionally you'd hear whispers about it, particular whenever Big Joe would try to do something big and bad. He left me, and most others, that he was bullying, alone after that. Settled him right down like neutering dog. Ran into him after graduation, and, like most people I went to high school with, just acted like we were long lost friends catching up. When I just tried to fight back alone, it became more of a circle. It really ended when a classmate contacted the teacher. Our teacher was head of the mediation group of our school, and, because our class was kinda a problem class, they tested quite a few new educational methods with us. So, when the theme of bullying came, she took the 3 main bullies of the class out together with the 3 most social guys that were liked, but also known to be fair. One of these 3 were also the one that tipped the teacher off. They were sat during a lesson alone in a room, and they had to discuss why bullying happens, what motivates the bully and what it makes with the victim, and had to hold a presentation about it in the end. The final task of these 6 was to think up possible punishments to prevent further bullying. That idea of our teacher was quite effective. Knocked the kid out and got suspended. Mom took me out for ice cream, and I got to spend the 3 days doing whatever I wanted. She was proud of me for restraining myself for 3 years, and for standing up for myself. Bully didn't get in trouble, because the other kids he was picking on at the same time were too scared to speak up. He did, however, stop bullying kids when I was around. He was one of my best friends growing up. High school came and he changed. He bullied me all the time, so I stood up for myself. He continued to bully me after we fought, so I fought him again within a week. He didn't win or lose each time, it was kind of a tie. He was a wrestler/football player, and I was a nobody. His jock friends made fun of him for not whining. He stopped after that. Now we are back to being super close. My mom and I got called into the principal's office. Mom said that the kid had been bullying me and that, if I'd hit him, he deserved it. Just look at my behavioral record up to that point. Spotless, blah blah blah. Principal agreed and that was the end of it. There was a lot more reasonable thought in school back in 1982. I can only imagine I'd be expelled or arrested under zero tolerance today. A family lived at the end of the street, all of them neo-Nazis. The 3 brothers used to chase me home from school, call me that word they love so much, and spit on me. One day they got me off my bike, and I got a black eye. My dad saw it, and said I had full permission to fight back. Since there were 3 I was scared. So, the next day, as soon as they rounded the turn I jumped off my bike, made some kinda awkward war cry, and swung my bike at him. The chain gear clipped the biggest dude's chin, and he got a nasty cut. Tire hit another, and I started punching the shit out of the smallest one. They all took off. From there on, I would put raw eggs in plastic bags, and let them sit out for a week. I would routinely do drive-bys on their house, throwing my rotten egg bombs at it. They never fucked with me again. There was this one kid and his bigger brother at karate practice who always bullied me. One time I attended a kickboxing seminar and I saw that kid there too. At some point we had to spar with each other, and, by all chances, I had to fight against him. His brother wasn't there, so he looked way less confident than usual. Turns out he fought like shit too, because I floored that motherfucker. After that day the bullying stopped. We were on a class camping trip and this one kid Pascal kept fucking with me, pushing me and calling me names, because he thought the girls would like him more for being tough. At some point, a blood red mist entered my vision and I started a beatdown on him. I mean the whole red-faced murder face thing. My dad and his dad were helping the class by keeping the kids in line on the trip. They're just standing there watching. My dad says to Pascal's dad, "Oh, things are getting a little heated over there." Pascal's dad, he probably asked for it. And then the teacher came over and he wanted to tear me off the kid. His dad stops him and tells him to let it go, all the while I'm still laying into this kid. Anyway, a death by 1,000 fists later, and I calmed down. My dad pats me on the head for a job well done. Pascal's dad took his little afterbirth looking crotch spawn away, and that was the end. Neither caught hell from the teacher. I decided to fight back using the same method that the bully preferred, verbal. I was so disgustingly polite to him that it clearly irritated the shit out of him. Just a big shit-eating grin on my face the whole time. Best part? No consequences. I was suspended 16 times and eventually expelled in the last year of high school. I was a bit of a weird kid and a magnet for that kinda shit. One particularly memorable occasion was with a meeting between me, my parents, my teachers and my counselors where the school was saying I had anger issues. I responded with, "I don't have anger issues, I've got a bullying issue. If they'd just stop bullying me, I'll stop hitting them." My dad just creased with laughter, as did the deputy head teacher. Still didn't stop the bullying though. A few of the bullies are dead now, and the only one who tried to carry that shit on after high school ended up getting the shit kicked out of him in the street by me. This is from a comment I wrote a while back on this topic. As a victim of bullying, mainly verbal, while I was in high school, they would push me to the point where it just boiled over, and I saw red. One time I beat the ever-living shit out of some total asshole who absolutely deserved it. I was caught by a teacher. Didn't matter what it was I said, I was clearly in the wrong. I got punishment, lines, and detention. This other little fucker got away with it. Later on he told me that it really hurt, but the only reason he did it was because it was also really funny, and me getting lines was icing on the cake. I still can't comprehend it. What's funny about having the shit beaten out of you? That wasn't even the last time they pushed me to that point. Sadly for me, it continued, right up until I left high school. The damage was already done for me. I'm not good with people in general. I don't have much feeling of self-worth or self-confidence. I have essentially no social life, and no real interest in having one, despite feeling lonely at times. I'm married to a very understanding woman, and I've got a decent job, so I can't really say it ruined my life, but I never understood the why aspect of it, other than some people are just assholes. In my freshman year of high school I was relentlessly bullied by the varsity QB. Daily this guy would punch me in the arm, hard. I had a perpetual bruise on my upper left arm. After a few weeks trying to avoid this guy, mostly not as it was a small school, I devised a plan for revenge. I found a piece of 1/4 inches aluminum plate in my dad's workshop that I hid in my jacket sleeve. When I saw the bully that day I taunted him by saying that he punched like a pussy and I couldn't even feel it. I offered my arm to him and told him to really try this time. Well, he ended up breaking 3 bones in his hand and wasn't able to play the rest of the season. Fuck him. Thanks for reading, and don't get mad, get even. I was the bullied for my entire school. I was a brown, weird know-it-all and they were all racists, even the teachers. It was hard, but some of the kids were going farther by being violent toward me during recess. So I decided to become even more violent, even against stronger kids. The trick is to not being afraid to being hurt. If you don't care what happened to you, it doesn't matter if you win or lose a fight, as long as you never let go. Pretty soon it becomes too tiresome for the stronger kids to mess with you, so they reluctantly stop pushing you around and just keep insulting safely only with words. I could live with it, not really. I was bullied physically and emotionally on and off by one guy who would egg on everyone else in the class to join in. It was a brutal time in my life. I enrolled in karate, but still lacked confidence to do anything about it. I'm a really gentle person, so causing harm to someone really takes purposeful effort on my part. One day after a few months of karate he decided to start that shit up again. He started pushing me around and taunting me. He had no idea I had been taking karate, mostly because I didn't have anyone to talk to in those days. I just kept walking away, and he'd get back in my face about it. The part that hurt was a childhood friend happened to be nearby and watching this. We weren't friends anymore, but he'd never joined in the class-wide taunting. He had a reputation to maintain too, so I respected that he just remained silent. But this day he started laughing along with the bullying. That just kind of set something off, and I went straight at the bully. I didn't use a single thing I learned in karate, not a scrap. I pounced on him and used my body weight to topple him to the ground. While on top of him, I started screaming at the top of my lungs while punching him in the chest and stomach. I stopped when my whole body hurt from adrenaline, and I realized he was crying. I ran to the bathroom and had a panic attack from hurting someone. I felt terrible even hurting this asshole. I threw up my mouth a few times. Went back to class at 10 to 15 minutes late. He wasn't bloody or bruised, but he was clearly in a fight. Since the teacher didn't give a fuck that I was being bullied, she certainly didn't give a fuck that the class D-back got in a fight. But she didn't say a word about me being late. She didn't even acknowledge me re-entering the room when she was mid-lesson. Everyone knew what happened. Nobody said anything. Nobody warmed up to me after that either. The bully didn't avoid me, but he didn't talk to me again either. In later years, when people had some more maturity, people told me they were happy I beat the shit out of him, but didn't know how the popular kids would react to it, since it wasn't a stand-up fight. The feral nature of my attack was a grey area for 11-year-olds, and they didn't really know if I should be considered a badass or a lunatic. It was in high school, and when I tried to fight back I got in trouble for not just turning the other cheek and ignoring them. One of them pulled my shorts down in gym class also, and when I reported it, I was told boys will be boys. The kicker is that those same shitbags now post on their Facebook about how their kids are being bullied and how it's no fair, that nothing is being done about it. 11.